Hey, hey, meaningful movers. Welcome back to Moving with Me, the podcast where actions have meaning, words have meaning, and we open up the conversations to discover what's your next move. I'm your host, Krystal. All right, I got to tell you, I am really enjoying this recap of my past 5-year career journey. We are still moving with the word transition and just giving it all kinds of meaning as these episodes go along. We are always in a state of not only continuous improvement, but continuous reminder. Now, what does that mean? Check it. You heard of the phrase, it's like riding a bike, you never forget? Well, that's pretty universal. Although in times when we are tested, it's easy to take the path of least resistance. You can't really expect that Band-Aid to heal a wound that requires stitches, though. That's why it's called practice. Because we are constantly revisiting our skills and contributions, not in an obsessive compulsory fashion, but reinforcing that muscle memory of what we are capable of and to keep that confidence level high. Now, I am starting year 3 of my 5-year recap and the end of the first quarter of 2020. I had just left an account under my own consulting company because of my wanting confidence when handling an unpredictable manager and bailing out to return to full-time employment, though with added benefits such as remote location and the salary that I asked for. This was right before COVID, so the remote location was more of a benefit then than it is now. And this may come across as arrogant, but it's just the truth. And when you know, you know. I knew that I was overqualified for this position and that I had the upper hand. Yet I was back in the political shark waters and I found my emotional resilience being tested again. So, in today's episode, I'll explore how conflict resolution is a talent worth honing and remembering. Mindset shift is harder to change than you would think, and it is not your responsibility to change someone's. Although, how you respond when being challenged can have a great impact onto others, should they choose to open themselves to it. It still amazes me how coworkers and leads have no idea how to treat nor what to do with highly skilled resources. Let me tell you, as a self-proclaimed highly skilled professional, emphasis on professional, I am not thinking of taking your job. I am not even competing with my coworkers because of one of 2 considerations. 1, I don't even consider you competition. That's not to be misconstrued that I don't think you are valuable, just that you contribute in other ways that best suit your interests and skills, which are different than mine, but are both needed for the team to succeed. Or 2, I am completely zoned out in my own growth journey that I am just looking for ways to increase that. This could mean that I am looking for ways to justify taking a course for certification or ask to shadow someone in the business to understand the process better. So I'm really not looking at anybody else but me. Now that's the short of it, but it is really that cut and dry for me. I can't imagine looking at every new person to join the team and be in a ball of knots because, they gonna take my job. Or what if they look at their background and decide to choose them over my tenure with the company? That happens. But look, if you are that concerned, you need to look inward. Schedule a meeting with your boss and let them know what your aspirations are and what they want out of the person in that position. That's actually a great question to ask the person interviewing you, by the way. I think too many people rely on their loyalty, air quotes there, with a company rather than their skills to win them favor. Don't get me wrong, loyalty is good, but it can only get you so far. Anyway, back to me succumbing to my fear of toxic leadership and completely abandoning starting up my consulting firm. So this time I am in a space where I am split between comfort and being challenged. I don't mind being challenged, but when you have very little support, well, none if I'm being honest, it does feel more like a test than an opportunity. So let me explain this role a little bit better. No one in the company had this experience, and I think 2 consulting companies had failed at implementing this kind of solution. I mean, it wasn't even explained to the team what that solution was correctly at all. So I was in this odd spot having to break this ignorance spell of what these consultants sold them and having to get the business back on the side of IT. My boss was just like, hey, we need you to just take over for this one consultant guy and finish off what he did so we can make this thing live and folks can start using it. So I did do this knowledge transfer from the consultant who had basically an attitude because they were being replaced. And when I asked him about, some questionable things that I saw, dude was just plain abrasive and dismissive. I just shut my mouth and wrote it down and brought it up to my boss when we were all on the phone. Now, in this case, my boss did step up in my defense and had the guy attempt to correct it. But I mean, he was days away from moving on, so it was likely he wasn't going to do it anyway. Also, they needed someone to configure this software. This isn't like going to Google Play or the App Store and clicking the install button. This was heavy work, which I had never done before, nor would I ever do. Like, I don't even aspire to be a database administrator or anything like that at all. And you know what? This is what I mean about not being in competition. I was looking for somebody else to come in and do this because this was not only outside of my job description, but outside of my goals in my career. I did not want to do this. Like, I know this was a great opportunity to get database administration or some configuration stuff under my belt. I didn't want it. I literally was like, I do not want to do this. But my boss was pressing me to do it. So what we're going to do is we're going to fast forward a few months. And at this point in time, I partially got that installation piece figured. During that time, I kind of did an assessment and went over everything that was currently in place. And so what I was trying to do was attempt to present those to my boss. And in that meeting, he brought another team member in. And at that time, I think he was kind of my boss's right hand. This guy was really good. Okay. So in this meeting, I was presenting some inconsistencies that we needed to correct before moving this program forward. When I say my boss launched into me about not changing anything and that pay was decided on this job and a bunch of unrelated stuff, I mean, he really went there. Unprovoked, mind you. I had no idea this was coming out at all. I'm thinking, what in the world? So I wouldn't say that I shut down. I just realized that he wasn't willing to trust me in a decision like holding up the project, even though I had all valid reasons. And this wasn't the time to keep pushing it. In fact, he was the one that shut down. So I had to find another way. I did reach out to the team member that was on the call. Remember I told you that really nice guy? And he also confirmed and agreed that our boss came across pretty harsh and that he suggested I talk to his boss, like my boss's boss, because it was important that my voice be heard. And this shocked me because, like, who suggests go talk to the boss about this? And I kind of was like, ooh, I don't know if I should do that. I felt that this may be kind of early for me to start talking to the big boss about things, right? I just wanted to work this out with my boss without having to involve leadership anymore. Like, I just wanted to get this done and move on. I was over it, right? It was just a few months into this thing and I'm like, oh my God. So what I did do was reach out to the recruiters who placed me there, and they too agreed with me that what my boss was asking me to do was out of scope, and that company even told them, the recruiters, to not recruit anyone who knew how to do that configuration and coding stuff because they planned on hiring a team of developers. They just were looking for someone who knew the work and had the capability to lead a team. And of course, their suggestion to me was go to the big boss, go to his boss. So I explained my concerns and they graciously suggested that they would basically broker the call for me since they had the relationship and understood my point. I let out a huge exhale, okay? It's such a wonderful feeling to be heard and to ask for help and you get it. And let me explain why this is important to me. I'm pretty independent at work. I don't like to be bothered while I am working, and I think that fits most people because I am in the zone and interrupting that will take me time to get back to that productive state. But when I do ask for help, that means I need it. I think people take that for granted. When they work with people who have incredible autonomy, that they don't recognize the moments when they are asking for help. I really do encourage leaders, managers, coworkers, peers, friends, and family to be attentive to those who are basically acting out of their expected state. Something's going on there. So, with the recruiter's support, my boss's boss really did hear out my concerns and was unaware that those expectations were being imposed on me. I also said that I didn't want this to be a big deal and I was looking for a way for us to work together. So, for a time, I really did need to work through my boss's boss to get things going because my boss was not willing to yield in his flawed thinking, not with me or even him, his boss. Okay, so that was good for a bit, right? My boss and I would still have our own conversations, so our working relationship still remained intact. Or so I thought. By this time, my boss's boss had advocated for me to get 2 developers with the necessary skills to complete the project I was on. In the midst of my team completing the program, which involved a lot of cleanup, my boss threw another project at me. And with one of my developers' help, we were able to put together a demonstration. We were pretty good to handle them 2 things at the drop of a dime like that. Before we performed the demonstration, I had the developer send some code to my boss for approval. My boss scheduled a call with me immediately after that email. I didn't anticipate what he was about to come at me with, though. I guess it was his first question that nearly sent me off. He said, "Do I need to help you with this team?" I mean, it was condescending, and I was caught off guard. My first thoughts were, what did you just say to me? Or, who are you talking to? It was on the tippity tip of my tongue. I'm serious. Okay, hold on. Wait a minute. Pause for a second. I just asked calmly, do you see an issue in my leadership of the team? And he rattled off some stuff about trusting the developer skill set, in which case I then became defensive. I knew it was because my team was fixing the issues that the last consulting firm they hired screwed up in a fraction of the time. Also, because he was speaking from a place of ignorance. He had no idea about the discipline that I was working on for him to make such a callous judgment call. I asked what exactly was the issue, and he said it was the code that was sent. It didn't follow any standards. I responded with, I know. And that shocked him that I knew that and still sent it to him. I could literally sense him turning red on the other side of the phone. And I explained that we were just sending him something so that he knew what we were doing so that we can test. Because this wasn't an official project, and I instructed the developer to not put the effort into following standards just for a demonstration. I even told him, I even included that explanation in the email so you had context and would not freak out like this. He isn't one to admit wrong, and he continued. I said, listen, the protocol in the team is for me to review all the code and ensure that the standards are met. In future, I will make sure that all code submissions come from me. Will that make you happy? He started to say something and then said, yes, that would. So it was like he was shocked that I wanted to end the conflict and even suggested a resolution that he was comfortable with. But you would think that was enough. Nope, it wasn't. He continued on about my leadership and said something like, maybe I just need to attend your meetings and supervise. My response was more of a hurt response, I guess. But it's like a professional hurt. It's kind of hard to explain, but it wasn't like I was on the verge of tears or anything like that. I was sick of being questioned about my capability and that he was dragging it out. It just didn't make any sense. But anyway, what did I say? I said, or you can trust me. And he went silent. His next words were, you are right. I'm sorry. And I do trust you. I just let that email get away from me, and I am fine with your leadership. I want you to succeed. And that's a summary of it, but this was probably the first time I have heard a manager apologize and admit that his emotions got away. Then, in the same summary, provide support. Our relationship really did improve after this conversation. But can you imagine what could have happened if I let my emotions influence my response? Well, I already told you what my response was when he first answered the call and asked me that damn question. So after another few months, the company started an enterprise-wide migration project, which included technical leads of all applications to discuss how we would basically go about this and approach and work together. I was one of them. All of us worked together really well. And I started getting more visibility because my diverse background to help guide the business analysts in defining their requirements, because this was new to them. They had me talk to an enterprise architect that they worked with previously on a project that failed, but somehow he was able to avoid blame. Interesting. We agreed on most everything. I wasn't really sure what the point of that particular conversation was for, but I will find out later. Shortly after that, I stopped being invited to the meetings with the technical leads. The next thing you know is the project is starting up, and I am being asked to submit designs and create tasks and stuff. Here's the thing. I can submit all the designs you want, but if the person that I am submitting them to for approval doesn't know how the system works, what good is it? But I did it. And of course, it is revealed that this enterprise architect that I spoke to earlier was hired on and taken the lead of the program. He was the one that removed me from the meetings, and he started critiquing my designs as if they were incomplete. Now, after a few run-ins with this, my boss and his boss had a meeting with me and this enterprise architect, mainly to facilitate the call because he constantly cut me off or spoke over me. Get this, my direct boss, the one I had the issue with earlier, was defending the hell out of me. He was saying, if she is the architect and is telling you that it must be done a certain way, then you need to do it. And if you don't understand, then that is an issue you need to resolve. And it is clear in this call that she has been trying to do that. This guy did not let up. And this was the first time that I saw my boss's boss begin to waver his support. It was just weird how things just were shifting like this. Again, political nature though. So in the next few months, I started entertaining job opportunities again, but this time they were contract-based. I found one that was short-term, light work, and had a high rate. I thought, let me try this, but while I was still at this current job. There was no threat because I was going in under my own consulting firm, and due to my high productivity at this full-time company, the time was there. This time, things started going exactly as anticipated, which I didn't need after that debacle of my first account. As I was managing the work of both jobs, I thought about my first account. How could I have better managed that situation? Like I did at this full-time one, and so many other times before. Just because I knew I could go anywhere with my talent didn't mean that I should use that as a way to avoid conflict. During this same time, it became clear that this enterprise architect was treating everyone like we were idiots. Remember what I said in the last episode in this series? Hostile leadership deepens the bonds of the team, even if it is against the lead. And that's a double-edged sword. Well, we certainly united under a fair treatment banner. Slowly, the fight, as in passion about our work, started to fade. No one would correct or contribute. We just did work, even when we knew it was not going to work. That is a sign of two things. One, when things do go bad, the lead is the one to blame, meaning us. No one will tolerate that for long. And two, people are looking for employment elsewhere. Those are two signs that I know of, and I've seen it. When people start losing passion for their work and kind of start to be a little distant, I'm telling you now, they are looking. I had it pretty good though. I was working both full-time and my consulting account, which were low impact. So what was the last straw? There was a design that was sent to this enterprise architect in which he would test it out and approve it. I made sure that both my boss and his boss were copied on that email for transparency. In a routine morning status call with the other technical leads, this enterprise architect gives everyone's status. Apparently, he didn't trust us enough to report on the work that was done. Anyway, there happened to be an issue with something related to the design I had given him, meaning he coded something other than what I told him to. But he said that my team changed the design and didn't tell him. My direct boss happened to not be on the call this time. Otherwise, he would have said something, but my boss's boss was there. I instant messaged him during this call and asked him, didn't this enterprise architect confirm the design? And this dude, my boss's boss, says, yeah, I don't know why he's saying this. But he never spoke up for me and I am a representation of his leadership. He let me take the fall. That's a dangerous game to play, in my opinion. It would be different if he said, "I'll explain later," or "Let me figure this out and get back to you." Something to let me know that he was going to address this. This was a public accusation and an affront to my capability to lead the team. Everyone else on the call knew the architect was full of it, but my big boss, I wasn't so sure anymore. It didn't take me long to find a new job, full-time, but I left with a huge network of supporters. I had so many people reaching out to me privately saying they know exactly why I was leaving and the lack of support from the management was an issue. Oh yeah, 2 other diverse female leads left before I did, and I wasn't the last to leave either. There was a good amount of good people that this enterprise architect and leadership pushed out. Good news is that I got the hang of handling multiple accounts under my consulting firm. I found a way to navigate full-time capabilities and 2 or 3 accounts. I kept the full-time for the insurance, otherwise I think I would have completely went all consulting, head on. Or maybe I did. We'll find out in the next episode. Well, we had some golden nuggets, and I think we should add some ketchup just to recap. 1. Conflicts with your coworkers or managers are inevitable. Manage your responses so that the conversation remains resolution conscious. Remove the personal aspect and get straight to the point and offer a resolution that they can't refuse. 2. It's always easy to abort mission when you have options, but that shouldn't be your first one. This excludes serious harassment situations. We know the difference between tested and toxic. And 3, reflection is the key to staying true to your vision. When we step out on a new career path and our first experience isn't what we expect, some of us, not all, will revert to what we know to be normal, the chaos. But if we pay close attention, we'll realize, even when we backslide, that we are capable of everything we set out to be. That's the episode today. I hope that my career journey is reopening chapters or even books that were once closed by conflict. It never fails to amaze me, the power of reflection. I think it's important to note that if one environment or opportunity doesn't present your anticipated outcome, neither will another one. But it's the scenarios that are very much the same wherever you go. Maybe different players and on a different court, but the principles and techniques don't change the game. It stinks to compare your life's work to some sport, but is it really so different? Some of us play the game, just enough to not draw attention. Others innovate past our peers, making us the top performers, while others create our own league. Which one are you? Make sure you guys subscribe to the show, Moving with Meaning, the podcast, and tap that alert bell so you know when these episodes drop. I'm on Apple Podcasts, Amazon Music, Spotify, and YouTube Music. Please share, like, repost, and follow. Tag someone. We are creating a community. Quick housekeeping before you go. Follow me on Instagram at movingwithmeaning82. Also connect with me on LinkedIn. I have my YouTube channel up with tons of creative content, and watch for me on TikTok at Krystal B. Clark. Links are in the episode. Alrighty, I'm Krystal on Moving with Meaning, the podcast, reminding you to take it one step at a time. All moves have meaning. Check y'all later.